Well, hello.
No.
Hearing echoes.
Is
I'm
it
hearing
echo? How about now?
Yep. Yeah, that's better.
It's
All
better.
right. And I'm hearing something else too. Is it you?
Yes, it's me. I had started this up in another screen and the volume
Okay.
was on,
Okay.
but I'm better now.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You're far too kind in my Jay Z voice. We're back. Women in Linux. I'm Tamika. Can I do it right this time? Yeah. Did I do it
Yes, but you're right. Yes, that's the other way. And
right?
I'm D, and we're women in it.
All right. And this week we got a special guest. I'm gonna go through our little intro real quick. How you find us. You can connect with us on meetup.com/women in Linux. You can also sign up for the one-on-one, which I did not mention last episode on Calendly. And you can also um, find us on social media everywhere, Women in Linux. And of course, you can hit us up on womenlinux.org. You can hit connect. Connect with then give you the email. You put in your email address where you can connect with us on Slack. But we have a slew of other information tools, conferences, uh, recruiters that are there, resume review, the whole nine. And also, if you want to purchase merchandise for a young kid or a loved one, feel free. We won't stop you. We encourage you. Hit all products where you can find other products, stickers, pins, um, coffee mugs, so forth, hats, so forth, right? And last but not least, like I always tell you, you can donate with your time, or you can donate with your money, or you can have a employer donate. Some people do gift matching from the employers as well too. Oh yeah, and we have Amazon Smiles that we never ever really. I don't even think D uses that.
We've had Amazon Smile for like 5 years, and I swear we have never received a disbursement from Amazon Smile.
Yes, we get. We get
So
5 cents.
lies. Lies. I don't know what gig rig up that one is,
We get
but
5 cents.
hmm?
We get 5 cents.
No, you get like 0.005 off purchases made, and literally we never gotten a disbursement. So that's why I rarely talk about Amazon
They
Smile.
using all connection. Oh, and don't forget the link for IT Pro TV, where you get discounts. I think it's 20 or 30% off of the normal charge. All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna turn it over to D. Well, we have our special guest coming on today to talk more about jobs at X4 Technology and as well as resumes. So D.
Okay, so if you were in the meetup maybe 2 weeks ago, we had two special guests come on, and of course, in our meetups, there are always something special. So we always want people to be exposed to different types of careers in tech. And one of our speakers is from X4 Technologies, and we were discussing the blockchain position that we've mentioned before on the live. And the rate for that job was 700,000 to a million, and that was the salary. So everybody was like, "That can't be real." So we brought our next guest up, and he spoke about the job and the careers that they have. And so we're just going to go through some resumes, and we're going to bring up Joe from X4 Technologies.
Take
Take
myself
yourself
off
off mute,
mute.
Joe.
Yeah, I'm Joe.
Hey,
Nice to
hey,
meet
how you
everyone.
doing?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
Oh, we're
Awesome.
great.
Thank you
I,
very much
I
for
was saying, I was saying hi, Joe, and then she took me off. All
no worries.
right, so Joe, we discussed in detail, and the video is still up. But I wanted to make sure I brought you back because I know we wanted to continue to talk and really talk about resumes and what you look for in resumes, and you have various jobs that you, well, I should say various companies that you look at, and then various jobs within those companies. So we can. we can pick a job if you like, or if you want to go down a resume or what have you, and we can go from there. However you want to start.
Yeah, no, and I guess, for the viewers, I guess that didn't see us on our last call, to give myself a little bit more background of kind of what I do, Tamika and Dee really covered it. So I work within blockchain. So, anywhere from different blockchain developers within different ecosystems, as well as, some higher seniority level positions. So things like, CTOs, heads of engineering, and, various jobs kind of along the way as well. And really, resumes will look different depending on the position you're targeting. I think, for the purpose of this call to kind of keep it broad to, really help out the most people, it'll kind of make sense to really just, cover the basics. And then, from that, we can kind of go on in a little bit more detail if necessary. I have some of the comments pulled up on another screen, so I'll try to kind of address that as well. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Little bit of a PowerPoint I put together, super brief. It is like 2 slides. So let me see if I have it pulled up correctly.
Yeah, you should be able to hit share.
Okay, give me.
And while you're doing that, Joe, I want to also let people know in the comments. We also can drop the link if you want to ask Joe questions directly. If you want to come up, or you can drop your questions inside of the chat. Well, this is loose. This is not like you're doing an interview right now. We're just trying to get you exposure. You're trying to hear what would you find exposure like this on a Saturday. Joe's been gracious enough to give us some of his time, so that you all can actually uh, talk about your resumes and reviews and what talk directly to a recruiter what they're looking for. Here we are. So, again, it's all about creating your network and building your network. And here's a great way to network right now.
Yeah, we get a lot of resume questions and career questions in general. And so um, here's your time to get those questions answered.
Okay, great. I'm having a little bit of difficulty sharing. I
Uh,
think it's saying I'm losing permission. So I think, we can scratch that. What I can probably do is we can share a PowerPoint at some point, and we
You
can
can
put.
email it to me.
Yeah, no, I actually am like literally just putting it together as I'm doing it.
okay.
It might be a little bit more beneficial, especially for people that like,
No worries. And
this is
just
gonna
quick,
be.
what era are you getting in the share so I can
Yeah,
let
so
somebody know?
I'm getting a Google Chrome error, and in fairness, it may be on my end because I am like in a remote desktop, so I can get access to my work computer on the other
Got
screen.
Oh,
you.
okay.
So
Got you.
Okay.
I think it might be some technical difficulty on my end. So I
Okay.
think, I can kind of go through some of the points I was going to talk about today. And I think what might be helpful is, after this, kind of put it together, and then we can, if possible, I guess, post it under the video description. That way,
Okay.
viewers can come back and kind of see what I was talking about and follow along. For those of you that are in the chat right now, bear with me as we go, but I'll try to make it as
Hey, it's okay.
informational as possible.
So, quick question: did you want me to go to your website and pull up some jobs, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, so whatever's easier, in terms of what you're looking for. I mean, really, what I can do is we can start, really just like key pointers for what things we should target in resumes,
Mm-hmm.
and then from there, if we want, we can, if you want to choose a job or so, and then we can go into a little bit more detail about what would a targeted resume look like to apply to a specific role or position.
Got you.
And then, if questions come up in the comments, we can go from there and try to address
That
them,
works for us.
as needed. So, I do, if you're following along in the future, not today, down below, a bit of a PowerPoint. So, just some key pointers to go through, that, every resume should have. And really, a good starting out point too would be, this is going to be specifically for technology focused positions. But resumes will look different depending on industry. So whether you're in a financial services domain, you're in, e-commerce, you're in commercial, whatever it is, it'll look a little bit different just depending on what your targets are. Things to include are, your last 5 years of work experience. Doesn't necessarily mean it's all relevant experience, but you want to show, what your time has looked like over the past few years prior to, shooting for this new job or new position. In that, you want to include, your positions, and then as well as, a little bit of a description, of what you were doing there, and we can kind of get to that in a sec. Starting with the basics of some other stuff a resume should include. Obviously, your name, location, which I hear different takes on. Some people are like, with technology and positions globally and remote, location doesn't necessarily matter as much. But what is important there with location is it really shows what time zone you're working in. That way, when you are working with these global teams, it's a little bit easier. If a company knows where you're located, they can say, okay, they're on Eastern time zone, or Central time, or they're located in Europe or Asia, and it makes that collaboration a bit easier. So make sure to include name, location, contact information is key as well. When recruiters, hiring managers are looking at your resume, you want to make it as accessible as possible to get in contact with you. So if you have a LinkedIn, a GitHub, email, you're using Telegram, you're using WhatsApp, whatever it is that someone can get in contact with you, make sure to include that information as well. And then this really takes us into what the breakdown of the resume should look like. So typically you're going to want name, contact information at the top, usually a bit bolder, just that it kind of stands out. We know, okay, so if it's my resume, we see Joe Michioshi at the top, see contact, you see LinkedIn, you see email. Super easy, so that if we like what we see over the next few pages in the resume, we know exactly where to contact them. And the order will look different depending on your experience level, depending on your previous jobs, as well as the position you're targeting. So to kind of put this into a little bit of a more narrow category, let's take a blockchain developer, for instance. So let's say you're an individual who, you're coming from a software development background. Maybe you've worked as a full stack engineer for, a few previous years, maybe 2 or 3 different companies. You're really looking to get into a blockchain ecosystem and take your career in that type of direction. Maybe it's with cryptocurrency, maybe it's within software design. You really want to help different organizations integrate into a blockchain, what have you there. So, what's important there is to put the most relevant information at the top of your resume. When recruiters, when hiring managers, when whoever is going to open this resume is looking at it, those first, few paragraphs, this first, top half of your resume is what they're going to look at immediately and catches their eye. So you want, your best selling points essentially to be listed at that top. So again, it'll be a little bit different depending on what your experience has been. But underneath of your name, your contact information, location, it should be something like, if your background was in computer science, let's say you have a bachelor's in comp sci, and want to put your education kind of right at the top, put your university, put the dates of school, and then underneath start getting into, more of your bio with breakdown of your previous jobs. If it's something where, I know in tech, a lot of individuals haven't necessarily come from a computer science background from education. So, if that's not the case, it may be, start with the most relevant things. So, your software development position's kind of at the top. So let's start with the job history. Again, it'll look different from person to person. And the key is really to put the most relevant information in order, kind of top to bottom. So let's say, you do have a computer science degree. So, you'd want that kind of at the top, your university that you went to, years, nice and easy, pretty simple. And then underneath, you would begin to get into, some jobs that you've worked on in the past. Again, it might be a little bit different in order depending on what those jobs were. If you're someone who's had a bunch of full stack developer positions, but no blockchain experience, and you're looking to get into the blockchain field, this is now an opportunity where, did you work on any side projects? Did you take, coding courses? It might be something where you want to put that up towards your education, kind of right underneath. Again, you're listing the most relevant experience right at that top, making it super easy for them to kind of go down the list of, why you are a good candidate and good fit for this position. So from there, then you would get into, your jobs descriptions. Chronological order is usually what we recommend. So, starting with the most recent position. And I see a lot of different ways that people kind of tackle that area of resumes. You want to avoid oversharing by putting, a ton of bullet points, a ton of information, and just, bombard them with different tech stacks and what have you there. But you also want to make sure that you're really highlighting what your skill set was and what, those companies look like, what your projects, what you worked on a day-to-day look like. So really what I recommend is, rather than copying pasting the entire tech stack of the company you worked at. So, you worked at Microsoft and you're like, okay, Microsoft uses all these technologies, all these different tools. You put that as technologies used. What you want to do is say, what was your project? What is, the little niche of that company that you worked on and what you really contributed, and highlight those. So, I worked on front end using XYZ technologies. I programmed in this to build a project, like super concise, while also making sure that you're putting in kind of the key names. So softwares that you're using, programming languages, you're going to make sure that they're in there. Because, a kind of a pointer for those of you that aren't as familiar, a lot of large organizations will use programs that will actually sort resumes and applications by keywords. So, if you're putting, okay, I have experience on React and Node.js, I have experience on Python or Solidity, and you're listing in your job, you have those, and this is what you were using it on. Not only is it going to give, whoever views your resume, whether it's the recruiter or hiring manager, a place to start and look at, it's also going to help when those programs scan the resumes and look for someone that, is the best fit theoretically for the position. So it'll kind of give you an edge in that aspect as well. And what's key there is really, go down and again, kind of break down what you did at those jobs, what your requirements were, what your day-to-day looked like, as concise as possible, while also really, highlighting what you did and what your skill sets are. And, just break it down. So, kind of go through your jobs list. If there's side projects, meaning, anything within blockchain or that industry you're looking to get into, after that, it would be, a time to kind of list some of those if you didn't previously. It would also be a time to highlight if you have volunteer experience, or if you're a part of any other, group, or you're involved in whatever outside of your 9 to 5 as well, essentially. So I guess that's really a rundown. And if you want to, in the PowerPoint that will be kind of included in this video, there will be like 1 or 2 example resumes that you can kind of look through. Again, my name and contact information should be kind of in the link. If not, reach out to Tamika or Dee. They can get you in touch as well. I'm free if people want a little bit more personalized advice in that area as well.
Right. And so I took the liberty of going to, I tried to get on X4 website, but I don't know. I think I may have something going on with my web browser. So I was able to pull it and source it from LinkedIn. And so I just pulled up some jobs that you all had. And so one job I found interesting right here. Now, this is not in your realm, but it's at your company, and this is not in blockchain, but it's a help desk engineering lead. And let me blow that up for some of y'all. And it looks like it has the information on location, work from home, full time, an elite investment firm. A little bit more. It's got a salary range here, and it goes into. Let me drop this down here. The requirements and preferred skills. And so this right here, this section right here was more so what you were talking about and when it comes to the skill sets that you have. Now, as far as a resume goes, do 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 recruiters like to see like a summary of qualifications, or instead of having a summary of qualifications, take those qualifications and write them into your resume, like tell a story with inside your resume?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great question. And again, it will be different person to person. What makes the most sense, and a resume is also a chance to get kind of creative with highlighting what your skill set looks like. That being said, it is definitely important to write them into the jobs themselves or into the projects. And really the reason is, for kind of, I think what you're hinting at is when people kind of put at the top of their resume, or throughout their, these are my technical skills, and they list all the programming languages, all these softwares that they've worked on. As a recruiter, as a hiring manager, if you're dealing with someone that has, let's say, 10 years of experience, we don't know necessarily when the last time they've used that skill is. And those of us who are in technology, it's changing rapidly all the time, different languages. Everything is just so fast paced that it's really easy to get lost in, just looking at a giant list and, okay, is this a good fit? And then we're trying to, look at the positions and say, okay, let's try to figure out where they were using it. It's a lot easier and more straightforward on a candidate's. And if in your resume you're actually highlighting, okay, my last job I used, these 3 programming languages, I use these, 5 or 6 softwares to work on these projects, I'm using, Amazon Web Services for deployment, to accomplish, this task with, a mobile app, whatever the application is, rather. So it makes it a little bit easier running down, and then it also it helps people that are looking at, a job description like that see, okay, is that something that makes sense for this position? And really just, gives you an edge, to get in, that first round of interview essentially, and then really, highlight those skills, on a face-to-face conversation, or a phone call.
Right. And you do have a question in the chat. Do you prefer the applicants to apply via LinkedIn or through X4 Technology website?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a great question. I think whatever is easier usually. LinkedIn is usually my go-to. I'm on LinkedIn like all day, as I think every other recruiter in the world is. It's a great tool for us to have. But if it's something where, you know, you see it on the X4 Technology website, you apply there, you find it on LinkedIn later, you apply there. What's more important is making sure you're getting an application in and taking that initial step or initiative. And not just, X4 Technology, that goes for other positions as well, whether it's, directly to a company like an Amazon or a Google or Microsoft, or, even other agencies as well, making sure you're getting in your application just to, put your name out there essentially. It's also something where I would really recommend, if, with a company like ours, if you're seeing a lot of positions, let's say, you're seeing a lot of data analyst positions, and you're like, hey, I don't know who's posting this, I really want to get into it. On LinkedIn, it's super easy. Go to the X4 page, click on consultants, or click on employees rather, and you can go through a list of, all the different people that work at the company. And usually, right in the bio, or, that right next to their name, it'll say, what their specialty is. So you can really see, okay, Joe Perez is, he works with all the data analyst positions, data scientists. He might not have his name attached necessarily to that job ad online, but now you kind of identified a point of contact and someone where you might want to connect with them on LinkedIn. Send them your resume, say, hey, saw a position, don't know if you're doing it, but I am interested, and get you in contact with the right person. There's also no harm in reaching out to, just someone from a company, and asking if they can put you in contact. That happens a lot throughout the day, and it's definitely something, we're happy to do on our end as well. I'm going through, I see a few more of these questions popping up.
Hmm.
So in terms of, people with little tech experience, again, this is why the order of your resume is really key. So, it's something where some people don't have a really extensive background in the industry that they're trying to break into. And this is where it's really important to put, what are the most relevant, things that you've done at the top, so that, okay, you're trying to get into this industry, here's what you've done to make this effort to try to, get your foot in the door essentially. So if it's something like, hey, I attended this blockchain boot camp, or, I attended this, computer class, through, whatever online program for the past 6 months, put that at the top. And again, don't just list the course, talk about, the technologies you've used, maybe the types of projects you've worked on, what your takeaway was from that, and almost treat it like almost a job description essentially. Because, for something like that, where your other experience won't kind of match up with the position you're targeting, you're going to want to take whatever you have that is relevant, and what can you put underneath of that to really show why you are a good fit, to get your foot in the door. And then once, you're in a first round interview, you're on a phone call, it's basically your opportunity to really expand. I'm very much aware that there's only so much you can put on a resume. Once you can get in, talk to someone face to face, it's a little bit easier to go into, what your background is, what your interest is, and, why you are a good fit. So really, the whole point of the resume is to get your foot in the door, and, get that chance to shoot for that position.
Right. And your next one is learning a Google badge valuable to recruiters or hiring managers. I think for me, I think when I look at that, I look at the experience of, right. You get experience where you get experience. and you gain a skill. Well, you gain a skill.
Yeah.
So it depends on how you pull that skill into a description of what you learned, right? You got a Google badge, but what did you get it in? Like, hey, develop a a I don't know, develop an application that scans resumes, um, or some type of pulling out the technical skill from that, so you can give not just a badge, but give us. To me, I always go back to the story of how you of what you used it for, and two, being able to show what you to showcase that in the interview or when you're talking to the recruiter, like what it helped you learn and what it helped you gain. That's just my take on it. I'll let the expert answer that question as well, but that would be my take.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. It was really well put. I think, it definitely doesn't hurt to be, striving to get badges and different things. Definitely depends what it is. A badge in Microsoft Office doesn't necessarily do a ton of good if you're applying for, a developer role. So, as long as it's a relevant one, but it's definitely something that is acknowledged. A lot of times, if it is a good resume that you're looking at, again, this is why having links to your LinkedIn, your GitHub, all those things are key, so that when they click on it, scroll down, they say, oh, got a badge or two, you have a few endorsements for different skill sets, you have your stuff really written in your LinkedIn, nice and neat, concisely. It's definitely something that will be looked at and considered as well. And then when resumes are passed over to different hiring managers, different members of those internal teams, again, it's sometimes looked at there. So it definitely can't hurt to go out of your way to try to add some of that stuff.
And I want to add to that because a lot of times, if you go on LinkedIn, they'll say, "Hey, have you worked with Linux?" Or have somebody's, recommend that you know Linux, or you have a list of things. Do you as a recruiter look at those things on LinkedIn when somebody says, not necessarily from their resume, but their list of skills that they have on their profile from LinkedIn?
From LinkedIn, I mean, yeah, like it's something where, again, this is where different programs tie in. Different companies will use things where they're targeting, a LinkedIn database of applicants. So, you apply via a resume that you submit, and the program that they're using, with LinkedIn will basically, pull keywords from the resume as well as directly from that profile page. So the more skills that you have listed, the better chance and higher likelihood that you'll have something that they're targeting. So it definitely doesn't hurt. That being said, is it's something that we spend a ton of time going through, different skills on LinkedIn. Some people have 40, 50. It doesn't always necessarily happen, but again, it's something that definitely doesn't hurt your chances and can really only help you out. So if it makes sense, definitely add them as well.
Right. Your next one is, how is it perceived when you're transitioning careers from finance to product management, and your LinkedIn is all finance based?
Yeah, no, I mean, these are questions that I hear, every day. So I'm glad people are asking. We're getting a chance to address it. It looks different again depending on what your job history has been, types of companies you've worked at, and the position you're applying for. How is that company aligned well with your previous experience? And that can mean different things, like are the tasks you're doing on a day to day similar, even though it's a different industry? What
Hmm.
does that look like? And again, this is why a targeted resume is sometimes really important for people that are trying to make that type of transition, where you have let's call it like an overall resume that you've used in the past, you've added to for your typical finance jobs that you've always been getting. Now you're trying to go kind of a different route. It might be time to change it up. So you had 5 or 6 bullet points that highlighted your skill sets that are really specific to that industry. There's definitely other tasks that you're doing at work that aren't in those 5 bullet points. Now is a good chance to kind of go through some of those past jobs and say, what did I do that might make sense for this new career path
Hmm.
that I'm trying to go down, and really highlight that. Again, if there's courses, there's classes, anything that you're taking, that's a good chance to put it on your resume. This is where a short bio on a resume would make sense. So here's my background. This is what I'm doing to get into this industry. This is why it's my passion, or this is why I want to go down this path. And again, the entire point is to get you into a first round interview, into a first round phone call, where then you can expand upon that, why you want to go down this path, and why you're a good fit essentially for that. So I think that kind of sums up my opinion on there.
Right.
Um, in terms of chronological order, I saw a question pop up there.
Mm-hmm.
I would say for job history, try to keep it in chronological order. It is definitely key to show, it's definitely key to show what you've been doing in chronological order. That way, it's a lot easier for someone to say, okay, 2019 to 2021, they're doing this, 2017, 2019, and you can kind of go down the list of what that experience has been like. It makes it a lot easier to read for someone that, doesn't necessarily know your background. That being said, when I'm talking about, put the key and most relevant positions at the top, what I mean by that is if your job history doesn't reflect the avenue or path you're going down, meaning, you're a developer that wants to get into blockchain and your past jobs don't highlight that blockchain experience, but yet you've taken boot camps, you worked on side projects outside of your regular job, you might want to list that above your actual jobs, like your previous job history, just so that it's again, towards that top of the resume. They're kind of seeing that first. They're seeing the most relevant information. But when it gets to actually, your work, previous history, chronological order is usually best. I don't know if Tamika's opinion differs at all, but that's just kind of my take on it.
Yeah, yeah. For job history, and for me, I think it's job dependent. I know when I'm pulling resumes and I'm looking to hire somebody, I read the whole resume
Yeah,
for myself. Some people don't read the whole resume. If you got, if you're an old vet like me, I've been in it 20 years. People are not going to read your whole resume. They're going to read maybe the first two or three jobs, but then you'll get that unique person that is going to read everything. So for me, the chronological history doesn't matter for me as much as I'm looking for the skill sets that you have gained over time, right? If I see a person who's been in the who keeps switching companies but go for the same job every single time, that means they got the same set of skill sets, and they may be okay with that. But if I see them going for a management position, but you've had the same skill sets, the whole time, I'm gonna look for manager skill sets that maybe you went out and acquired or you took some program or something like. But if I don't see that, and I've had this happen to me, um, if I don't if it's not shown or you don't highlight that, like you say, a targeted resume, most people overlook it. They'll toss it to the side. So for me, the history, the chronological history doesn't matter because I'm going to read your resume from top to bottom. But for somebody else, they may only read the first three jobs, and the actual skill sets that you need may be on the other two pages or the
yeah,
other page. So that's my thought process in that.
yeah. No, I mean that very well put. And again, I think this is why it's really key to highlight that it will look a little bit different from person to person, what the ideal resume will look like, because everyone's past experience, everyone's skill set is different. So it's really figuring out what works to sell yourself as the best for that future role. So you know
Right. And coding Evelyn Miami's asked, what do you look for in a portfolio? And I'm assuming that's in a programming portfolio or maybe a UI UX maybe a portfolio.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna be completely honest. In terms of some of the positions I'm working currently, I'm not as much looking through the portfolios. I'll kind of leave it if Tamika's kind of experienced that maybe a little
Mm,
bit more than I have to see what might be best there.
yeah, for the coding stuff, I'm not familiar with the UI and UI UX. I can't answer that part. But on the portfolio, it depend. It is company dependent, and here's why. Some companies won't even look at your portfolio, and they'll just give you a take home test. And so now it's on you in this take home test to showcase how you break apart a problem and go from there. Other companies will say, well, let me look at your GitHub and see if you contributed to any open source projects. Are you working on an open source project? What are you doing in your spare time? So it is company dependent. And the easiest way to find out If a company wants a portfolio, ask them. Find a recruiter and email them and ask them what are they looking for in the candidate. I'm sure the recruiter will get back. Sometimes you get ghosted. I'm not gonna lie. Some recruiters don't respond. But I mean, I would ask in that case, because I could tell you from the infrastructure side, we're not looking at if you have a GitHub repo or not. You're gonna get sent home a take home, and or you're gonna have to go on HackerRank and you're gonna have to do a test, or you're gonna have to come on prem in a live interview session and do a live coding session,
Yeah.
and that's normally what I've seen from the live coding sessions. The portfolio is icing on the cake, right? To say that these are the things that I have been doing, and I can prove it to you, and you can go look at it. But am I gonna get, will I get a job based upon that? It depends on the person. If they think that you're advanced enough and don't even want you to sit through the interview process. I've seen that happen before too. So it's really dependent on the company and the person doing the interview at the company.
Yeah.
I say that.
That makes
And MTV, you said how many rounds in the interview process? I think that depends on the job.
Yeah, that's the best way. I mean, typically, usually about 3 rounds, I think, would be what I see with most companies we work with. Breakdown of that will be usually an initial phone call, maybe 45 minutes to an hour, sometimes shorter, depending on company, where it's basically, what is your background? So again, that's your first shot of really highlighting why you're a good fit, going over your background, and also who you are as a person. Cultural fit for a lot of startups and smaller teams is super important. Making sure that you're someone where you're going to get along with the coworkers, get along with the team, so that you're as efficient as possible in that position. A second round, as Tamika said, is usually a take-home test. So take-home test or a live coding interview. It's more of a technical for that second part. Again, sometimes takes you an hour or so, 45 minutes to an hour, 2 hours for higher seniority level positions. And then a third round is usually kind of a mixture of the two. So it's a little bit of background, personality questions, it's background, work history questions. It's a little bit on the technical side, as well as, really doing a deeper dive of, why are you the best fit, and kind of opening the conversation to that candidate to, make a selling point, make, their case for, why they want the job, and why they are the best fit. The third round will usually be with someone who's a bit higher seniority level in that organization. So, they've only heard of the first 2 interviews. They might have seen your technical test, but this is the first time you're talking to them, so it's a little bit different. But again, different company to company. Just make sure you're asking these type of questions to the recruiters, to the people throughout the process. That way, you can properly prepare on your end as well.
Right. So another question I had was what would people making career changes, because we usually have like the ones that have been in it for 10 years but they want to do a different route, or they've been in it for 5 years and they don't like what they're doing and they want to go a different route, right? And when I say a different route, from it could be from management or just hopping into
Hmm.
something that's totally different. Where what type of or where uh would how could someone take their skill sets that they have and then possibly make a bid for a change into those companies? Do you, or to those positions, do you recommend maybe doing a shadow with someone, or finding a mentor, or doing some open source projects, or just something that gives some, I don't necessarily want to say credibility, but shows the interest and the skill sets to get into it?
Yeah, no, and again, it'll be different for what works, and also for what's available to you. Just this morning, I spoke to a lady reached out to me on LinkedIn and basically said, I've worked at a company. She's a CEO of a company. She's done that for the past 10 plus years, and she wants to get into blockchain technology. She wants to get into coding. No software engineering background. Obviously, a very smart person, a very smart woman who's built a company, been very successful in other areas, looking to take on this new challenge, go down this new path career. And it's something where she's worked on a boot camp project or taken a boot camp class. So, showing the initiative where, I'm learning the coding skills that are relevant to these positions that I'm targeting. Again, if it's something where you're super interested and that's why you're making the career change, of course, working on side projects, showing, okay, this is what I'm going to be doing regardless of if I get this job or not. This is how interested I am in this technology or in this field. And showcasing that in your resume is important. In terms of getting a mentor, of course, if you reach out to someone on LinkedIn, whether it's a friend, whether it's, a recruiter, someone from a company, whomever, just for advice, figuring out, what that next step might look like, definitely can't go wrong there. And again, I think more about showing the, proactiveness on your part that you're, attempting to make this, career change, or you're attempting to make this switch, and you're really, doing whatever is needed, doing whatever you can to make that happen. And I think that is what
Mhm.
stands out to, myself personally, when I talk to candidates that don't necessarily have that background. How invested are they in making this change, and what have they done to try to make that happen?
Right. Your next question is a profile summary placed at the top of one's resume or not?
Yeah, so it's not necessary, unless needed, and by that I mean, for something like that where it's someone who's making a career change. This is a great place to showcase what you've done. So, top of your resume, over the past 10 years, I've worked doing this, this, this. Recently, I've taken blockchain boot camps to, learn Solidity, this. I've also worked on these different projects. Keep it like a paragraph or so, nice and simple, but really, taking time to highlight, what your background is, and what you're striving towards. With someone that has a, super on point resume. So, you're applying for a full stack position and your entire resume is full stack experience. You have all your coding languages in there, super relevant to the positions. A summary might not be as necessary. It's definitely something that can't hurt as long as you're keeping it, concise and not writing, an entire essay. But that's just kind of my own take on it as well.
Right. And I know you got something to do at 3. Uh,
Yeah, no, I message. I can put it back a little bit if necessary. So,
okay.
um,
All right. I want to make sure I don't want to
yeah,
run over and you late for your info. So another question that I often get is okay, I have the skill sets, right? And I've gotten the first interview, I've gotten the second interview, but the third interview I bombed. So, do you do mock interviews, or do you have a recommendation of a place where people can do mock interviews? Because I think the interview process, people get nervous oftentimes, and so things are always people are always like, I bombed their interview and then they don't go back at it. So do you do mock interviews? Do you recommend mock interviews? And do you have a if you do recommend, what would be a good place to send someone?
yeah, no, and again, there's a ton of different places where you can go and do those. I know a bunch of
Mhm.
different universities will do different mock interviews, not necessarily just for students, but for community members as well. So there's a bunch of different options to get that kind of help and advice. And again, I think it's key to really look at where your interviews are going wrong. It's something that I talk about a lot with some of my colleagues. If you're writing resumes and you're submitting a bunch of resumes but not getting a first round interview, the problem isn't you're interviewing, it's the way your resume is written. If you're submitting resumes, you're getting a bunch of first round interviews, but you're not getting a bunch of second rounds. The problem isn't your resume, it's a little bit the interviewing skills. And by that, it might be you're a fine public speaker, you're great talking, you're very personable, but you might not necessarily be doing yourself a ton of justice in the way you're articulating your skill set and really making a point of why you're a good fit. So in an instance like that, it may make sense to look at some of those mock interview classes, see if you can get help in that area. If where you're dropping out is after a technical, obviously brushing up on coding skills, and if there's boot camps or classes that might make sense, that's a good place to seek help. For someone that's getting to a bunch of third rounds and not necessarily getting the positions, it's a little bit harder. I think mock interviews will definitely help. They definitely can't hurt. But it's also something where you could be a really good fit and you're just losing out to someone that they might think, oh, we're going to go this way or this way, and it might be a little bit unlucky. Usually if you're getting into those third rounds, there's something you're doing really well to get there. You have a good resume, you're interviewing really well, you're doing well in the technicals. So at that point in time, I would say mock interview help. Maybe it's brushing up on technical skills, reaching out to someone and say, hey, what can I do better? It's also something where it's never harmful to reach out, whether it's to the recruiter or directly to the hiring manager, in a very friendly way, like, hey, thank you for taking the time to interview me. Thank you, for your time, whatever. Would have loved to get the position. I understand that you're going a different direction. If there's any pointers you can give me, for the future, or, something of that nature. And sometimes, again, they might kind of ghost you, not necessarily give you a big answer. It's a bit of an awkward question. But if they do tell you, oh, hey, it was this or this, kind of jot it down and make mental note and try to kind of work on those skills as well. But I guess again, it's case to case what makes the most sense there.
All right. So here's a question. I received this information normally from the hiring manager or what have you, and they'll tell me that, hey, we're still interviewing people for this position. We have at least 3 or 4 candidates that we're looking at. We'll get back to you in a week or so for the next round or after we've interviewed those candidates. And so, would you ask the question, how many candidates are we interviewing for, or would you just hint around it or let them just tell you?
Meaning what? Like how many positions are available, or how many other people you're
How many
competing
other
with?
interviews they may have before they get back to you? Uh,
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Again, I think it's case by case. It depends on what that relationship looks like. What that conversation looked like. Um, I would, and I don't know how to give a perfect answer for it.
yeah,
I think it would take a little bit of feeling out what makes most sense. And use your judgment there, what you think's appropriate in that
yeah.
situation.
Usually they tell me. Usually they'll say, hey, for me, that's just the indication you like me.
Yeah, no, of course.
It's an indication you like me. And they're like, hey, we'll get back to you, but we have 3 or 4 other candidates that we have to interview. We're looking to close this position in the next week or two. And if anything changes on your end, please let us know, and so forth. So I usually get told that information. I never really had to ask, but I wasn't sure if that was something uh, out of bounds for someone to ask. I
Yeah,
wasn't
no.
sure.
Again, I would, if going that route, I would go more in the direction of what is the time frame that I should hear back within. That way you kind of have an idea of, okay, it might take a week or two. And usually when you ask that, if it is the case where they're interviewing other applicants, they'll just tell you most of the time. So it kind of leads into that if they didn't already previously say it. But to give yourself an idea, so that way you're not checking your email every other day, really hoping to hear back from this position. You understand, okay, I might not hear back for 2 weeks. And then also by asking that, you're putting yourself in a good position where, if 2.5 weeks passed, you're like, okay, it's a little bit after the time frame they had said they'd get back to me. It might make sense to send a follow-up email again, very politely, like, hey, know you've been you have a busy schedule. Really enjoyed our past conversation and excited about this opportunity. Do you have any feedback on your end for me? Look forward to speaking soon, something along those lines. But again, judgment that makes sense there, and do what you think is best.
All right, and shout out to Kevin. Thank you for joining. But I do have another one for you. So I'm looking at your one of your positions right here. I don't know if this is if this is a position that you have, the global head of quantitative research. Is that under you or someone else?
No, that's actually, yeah, one of my friends. I believe it is Zachary Hannafeld, which is one of my good friends and colleagues at X4. He usually handles a lot of our quant positions. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's under that. And I was reading it and I was like, as the global head of quantitative research. Yeah, I was like, where do you find? I guess this is an all math background type of situation, and you probably got a PhD in math and doing research or something like that. That's what I'm thinking that is.
Yeah, no, a lot of the quant positions will be someone that has a really strong, mathematical background, whether it's statistics or something similar, where they usually have their undergraduate, their masters, and PhD degrees all within math.
Mm,
Someone with really strong background there. Something like this, usually if you're a global head of quantitative research or someone that has a little bit of industry experience, for some of those more junior quantitative positions, some companies will even take people right out of university. So someone that's just completed their PhD program at a school, done really well, has a very impressive educational background. And some of those companies, a lot of hedge funds, a lot of banks, where you typically see those type of roles, will take someone with just a super strong background in, and really help them build up job specific skills for that role for that company itself. So some of the quantitative positions are a lot different than what I typically work on. But again, really strong mathematical backgrounds, people with very impressive resumes as well.
right. So you got another one. Does applying for multiple positions within an organization make a person seem not as serious about a position or make them seem like a job hopper? Is that nothing? Is there? I guess is anything negative about that?
Yeah, no, and nothing negative about that. Again, you're showing initiative. If you're like, it could be, for me, if I see that, again, I'm not internal at some of the companies. We're posting for, multiple different companies as an agency, like an external third party, essentially. But if I see someone applying for a bunch of positions, I've worked internally before this. It's something where I think, maybe they really like the company. Like this is, they really believe in the company idea, what, they're doing. This is kind of something that makes really sense for their career path and a stepping stone in their career. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't
Hmm.
think that implies job hopping at all. Um, Again,
No,
I don't know if your view differs, but I
no,
think
it doesn't. What I often have found is this: if you made a contact with a recruiter at their job, the best thing to do, say at a company, I should say, the best thing to do is before you go apply, call back to that recruiter and ask that recruiter to see if they can forward your resume to the right person, who's recruiting for that position versus you going externally and applying. You already have an in with someone. They can real and some companies do this too. Some companies contact you and say, "Oh, I see you apply for this job. Great, we'll still interview you for this job, but we also think that you will be a good fit for these other positions over here at this location. So I'll have those people contact you if you're interested." So now you have not just one point of contact, you may have two or three other points of contact, to other jobs, and then two, what you see online may not necessarily line up with what's becoming available that the recruiter may know firsthand, and you have first dibs on getting the interview before it even gets posted online. And then in some cases, I've seen where people will make up a job for you.
yeah. No, I mean, I think that is really one of the benefits of working with recruiters, whether it's external or internal. It's something where, myself, I have anywhere from, 3 to 4 jobs posted on LinkedIn or various websites at any time. But, I'm working 40, 50 different roles amongst, a number of different companies. So it's something where, if you're like, hey, I'm also interested in these positions, it's definitely something to let that recruiter know. So that way, oh, I also have this that's not posted online. Would you be interested? And again, working directly with someone, internally at a company, whether it's, an external or internal recruiter, they have the ability to communicate directly with the hiring managers, directly with, people with a little bit more seniority at these companies. And like Tamika said, if you have a really good resume, there might not necessarily be a job that's perfect, but they, really like your skill set. There's definitely opportunity to, create positions. It's definitely something I've seen happen. It's definitely something, there's a lot of money involved in as well, given the skill set, given what they're looking for.
Right. And Cisco 5, hey, how you doing? He asks, hey, Joe, in today's market, is it still frowned upon to ask about compensation during the initial interview with the recruiter?
No, I mean, again, this is my take on it. I would say absolutely not. A lot of times, myself acting as an intermediary between, a company and a candidate, and trying to be a matchmaker essentially. It's something where I like to ask sometimes, what are you targeting in compensation? It's not necessarily something that, I run and tell the hiring manager, okay, this is their price. It's to get a feel for, if you get through this interview process and they were to offer you, let's say, 220,000, is that something that you'd be comfortable accepting? So, if our first or initial conversation, you're like, hey, about 200 range, I think, is what I'm looking for. I already kind of know that, if I go to this hiring manager, they look at the resume and they tell me, oh, we'd like to bring in this person. And they kind of give me an idea of what they would value them at initially. And they tell me a number that's, completely out of the ballpark, meaning, way under what your expectations would be. It's definitely helpful to have that. That way you're not, wasting anyone's time there. So I think it's completely appropriate. Again, it's the way you do so. If you're phrasing it like, hey, I'm wondering what the compensation range would look like. This is kind of what I'm targeting. Again, trying to get the most money as possible. That's definitely something you want to do when you're looking for jobs. Very understanding of that
But
as
it's funny that you say that, right? Because oftentimes people are like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're asking about the salary." When at the end of the day, it's what you're getting paid. It's your skill set. It's your life. It's
yeah,
your it's who you know. This is how you're gonna eat and pay your bills. So
no,
I never
exactly.
understood the reluctance to even uh, ask the question about what I'm getting paid, and then people will be like, "It's not about the money; it's about the project and the purpose and so forth." Well, okay, well, just
Yeah,
don't pay. Just do
no,
it for free.
exactly. And I
Do it
think
for free.
yeah, and it's definitely appropriate because again, there's so much that goes into a job that affects your livelihood on a day to day basis outside of work. So, joining a new company, taking up a new position, think how much time you're spending on work, how much time you're spending with colleagues. You really want to understand what you're getting into, and the financial aspects of that will affect kind of those other areas of your life as well. So, completely appropriate in my opinion. Definitely something that wouldn't make me feel, oh, this candidate shouldn't have said that, or I know there may be different opinions out there with other recruiters or hiring managers, but I think at the end of the day, a lot of people understand that you got to pay for your house, you got to pay a mortgage, you got to pay rent, you got
What
bills.
is
So
inflation?
yeah, no, it all makes sense there.
Now, here's a question before we get to this next question. Well, when it comes to Um, oh God, I just lost my question. I can't believe this. I had it at the top of my head. Let me go to the next one and then come back to me. How useful is Linux experience in blockchain? I guess in learning blockchain or in the job for blockchain.
Yeah, no, depends on the company, honestly. Depends on the ecosystem as well. So myself, there's a ton of different blockchain ecosystems. You think of the more popular ones, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana is really hot right now. Cardano, Polkadot, just to name a few. The typical technology stack in each of those will be a little bit different. And then, even going further than that, the companies that are operating within each of those specific blockchains will also have, slight variations of what their technical stack looks like. So to kind of make that make more sense, let's say you're working with a company that you're applying to, they're a blockchain company in the Solana ecosystem. It might be something where they have, Linux in their tech stack. It's, something where previous experience on a Linux environment or whatever has, relevance to that position. So it might make sense. But again, it's case by case what makes sense there. Linux is a very popular one that you'll see a lot of people have had experience with. So it's definitely something that, can't hurt. And really, my opinion is the more experience on the different types of stuff you have, while also having, those specializations in a certain area, a really strong skill set. Like Tamika referred to earlier, a bunch of different jobs, but why did they hire you? Like, what is it that you really contributed to each of this? That's key, but having, other skills is definitely always a plus. You can never go wrong there.
Right. Um, I can't remember. I can't believe I forgot my question. it slipped my mind. That's why I have to write stuff down. But I think my question was more. Oh, I know what it was. Oh, it just escaped me again. Gosh, I think it was more center. I think it was more centered around your technical skills that you have, and oh gosh, it'll come back to me because it was an important question that I get from recruiters, and I just wanted to get your take on it. But I forget it off the top of my head now. It'll come back to me.
Yeah, no
Let me
worries.
see. I don't think we got any more questions, and you're welcome, Cisco Five. And if Joe says he's got to get out of here, we'll probably stop here about 3:20. So if somebody want to
Yeah.
come up and ask Joe a question, or if you got a question for us, now's the time. Don't be shy. Uh, you know, other than that, I'm gonna keep going because I have other things that are up on the screen. So I did pull up this Rust blockchain developer. Now I'm assuming this is you.
So it's either myself or my colleague Maxine. I want to say this is
That's
probably
what my
Maxine.
question was. That's what my question was. Glad this came up. No degree mentioned. So my question was this: how in the blockchain space, what does not having a degree look like? Is it important? Is it not important? Or is it a case by case situation?
I would say I would lean more on the case by case side, and the reasoning behind that is really, blockchain is so new where um, the technologies are ones where they've really become popular in the past 5-6 years for a lot of them. Um, a computer science background even, while it kind of points you in the right direction, it doesn't necessarily mean you've learned these programming languages at school in
Exactly.
the past, if it were years ago. So again, case by case, if there's not a specific educational requirement in there, it's definitely something where they'll take into account when they see resumes, what your background is. So definitely make sure it's included in your resume. But something might like that might just mean that it's not really what they're targeting. They're targeting more of a specific skill set. And again, with super new technologies in blockchain, as recruiters, as talent acquisition teams, it's sometimes hard to find people that fit the very specific technical stack that they're looking for some of these companies. Again, different companies we work with will value different skills, different backgrounds very differently depending on the culture and what their organization's goals are. Um,
Right.
yeah, that's-
Now this particular one that I'm looking at here, it doesn't. Let me see, because some of it is show the recruiter who listed this a contact here, but I don't see that here. But here we got work from home, no degree mentioned. An upcoming blockchain company in Solana ecosystem is looking for a fantastic blockchain developer to join their fast growing fully remote team. They're developing an innovative protocol for buying and selling real estate. This firm is in the startup phase. They're looking to expand their blockchain team. Blockchain developer is fully remote, highly competitive. 2 years of C++, 1 year of Rust, or clear evidence of personal projects. So here goes that question about that portfolio here that comes up, right? Um, Personal projects equivalent to 1 year experience, right? Smart contract development, professional blockchain developer experience, strong communication, startup experience, Solana or Ethereum experience, eager to hit the ground running, blockchain development side projects, right? So this is again no degree mentioned here. Is do you like blockchain and have you created some smart contracts,
Basically.
have a portfolio around it? And if you do and can interview well and have C++, I'm assuming here I would think that C++ is the 2 years could probably be a waiver at some point if the person has 2 years of Rust experience.
Yeah, no, of course. And again, I think the key with any job description is it's like a rough what we want. Some companies are a lot more specific than others where, these skills are mandatory. Some of them it's, you see two years of experience. Let's say you have one on C++, you got two on Rust, give or take, you're in the right ballpark. It's definitely worth
Mhm.
sending in an application. So I think
Right.
you really hit the nail on the head there.
Right. And then this is where your side projects come up. And the other thing too, and this goes back to what I was saying. I've said this before, but I'll say it here again. Go to the conferences that have that are centered around what field that you want to be in. If it's blockchain, if it's you're looking to do product management, center yourself around those conferences because it gives you some inside track and knowledge. But not only that, start linking up with people who are attending the speakers in particular who are attending those conferences and look at what they're doing and follow them on LinkedIn and Twitter because now you gives you that inside track to know, what they're doing, what they're being involved in, and you can start communicating with them. And these are people that you could ask for mock interviews. Hey, I created this portfolio. I would love for you to do a review of it. I'm looking to get into X, Y, and Z. I see you got some positions open. This is where that comes into play um, for conferences, virtual or in person, or meetups. You'll find that a lot of meetups are sponsored by, it may be a company that's using blockchain or Linux or cloud computing, and they're sponsoring the conference, that meetup, and maybe it's the head of the department there or somebody. I've seen a lot of people get hired at meetups. Basically, what I'm saying. So I mean, again, in down here it says even if you're missing a few skills, this is important, Pete, right here. Please do not hesitate to apply if you're interested in being a blockchain developer role. Now, he's not saying if you never coded in C++ and never coded in Rust, and you've never coded, uh, you know, don't reach out. But 9 times out of 10, just Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong. You won't get the job, but at least still reach out because there may be, and I've seen this happen. There may be an apprenticeship program they have, well, for some people. Yale has an apprenticeship program where where you'll do different roles. Kayla can talk to this a little bit more, but they have different roles that you can apply with no experience and you gain experience over time, and then after a year or so or maybe two, you can apply full time for a position and then go from there. It depends on where you're at with that, but I'll let Joe speak to that in particular about this particular line right here.
Yeah, no, and again, I think it was really well put from your part. It's something where, especially for a role, um, you most likely need some type of relevant experience to land the position or to make yourself super relevant. So definitely having a coding background in, one of those two languages at a minimum, for this type of role would make sense. But again, it's something where, if you have somewhat of a coding background or familiarity, you might not necessarily be right for the position. Don't necessarily, submit an application. You're free to, but it's something where definitely reach out to someone from those organizations, for this, myself or colleague Maxine, and say, hey, really interested in some of these positions you're working. Don't necessarily have the background that, would make me a super relevant fit necessarily. What is advice you have that might help me land these type of positions in the future? I think that's a good place to start. And from our point of view, it's something where some of the companies we're working with will, as Tamika said, have internships or have different programs available where it's not necessarily a full-time position, but it's an opportunity where someone with less experience can sometimes get their foot in the door to then a year or so down the line start to land some of these positions that are super relevant in the blockchain industry. um, and it's also something too where my LinkedIn has a lot of messages, I think throughout the day, getting a few hundred a week, just people reaching out with different things. So don't feel like, if myself or one of my colleagues doesn't get back right away that we've forgotten about it. It's something where, we're just trying to keep up with all the people, and trying to do our best to make sure that we're there as a resource, not just, as a recruiter, but as like an industry expert and consultant that can really, help you figure out what those next steps might look like to take your career in kind of the right direction there as well.
Right. Now, before we let you get out of here, Joe, you want to give people how to reach out to you, your LinkedIn, any social media, whatnot. Um, and again, X4 technology isn't just blockchain. We talked about this in our meetup. They also cover the variety of fields from um, DevSecOps and cloud, and I think there were a few other ones. That were you doing security, cybersecurity as well?
Yeah, no, to kind of wrap it up, what we do is a lot in technology. So the company itself is X4 Group. X4 Technology is a branch of it that specializes specifically in technology recruitment and talent acquisition. We have specialists in just about every area of the technical market across multiple continents, with offices in Germany, London, as well as some locations in the United States, New York. We're looking to expand to a few more locations this year, with activity going on in, I believe, Florida and Texas right now. Very fast-paced growing business, and it's just about everything. So the quant positions, blockchain, you think normal developers, so Java, Python, C++, C, R, just about everything in technology. There's someone that's really specializing in that market and has a rather large client network and candidate network that we're working with. Some of the other brands, not to go into too much detail for the X4 Group as a whole, we have an entire communications recruitment department, X4 Communications. We also have X4 Life Sciences, again, across multiple continents, where not even technology oriented positions. They're completely different, working with different companies in the medical or health industry, or with communications. Really, multiple different industries for more marketing positions, and what have you there as well. In terms of reaching out, definitely feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Tamika, I tried to put in our private chat the LinkedIn tag. I don't know if it's really going through. If you want to kind of share that with everyone, that's fine. Feel free
No,
to add me
let
and
me
reach out there as well.
let
Um,
me grab you on LinkedIn from mine, and I'll drop it in there.
yeah, no worries. And yeah, and on LinkedIn too, I have in my bio there, I believe my number, so it'd be my direct work line. If I don't, I'll make sure to update that as well. I also have my email address. Feel free to reach out. And if other forms of communication are better for you, definitely let me know that on LinkedIn. Feel free to shoot me a message and say, hey, I use WhatsApp because I'm located in different time zone or different continent. It's easier. I have all that available. It's something that I'd actually plan this weekend to add to my LinkedIn page. So hopefully by the time, those of you who aren't live and are watching the video in the future see it, it'll already be up there nice and neat for you. But again, not just me, a lot of my colleagues are very, open to having prospective candidates and people just interested reach out as well. I think the great thing about the company I work for is, a lot of my colleagues not only, like the job in recruitment, but the actual market that they're working in, myself in blockchain, it's something where not just as a job, but it becomes a big hobby, a big part of your life. Just this past week, I went to a New York City blockchain network event. I believe it was at the Yara restaurant. Some Michigan State University alumni of mine invited me. A bunch of different individuals, CEOs of different companies, developers, other recruiters, whomever that's kind of within that industry. We're having a nice event. Everyone's, food, talking, networking. A bunch of my colleagues in their areas, that's how they are as well. They really love what they do. Most of us will talk your ear off. So, feel free to, reach out with any questions. Happy to be a resource.
Right. And Dee's posted the Joe's LinkedIn. Um,
Yes.
here's another question, Joe, before you get out of here. Do you all have a division for quantum as well too?
For
For
quant,
quantum
yeah.
computers?
So that would be Zachary Hennerfeld, or I'm gonna butcher his last name, Arthur Barquette. I want to say I'm saying that correctly. Who's actually he works with our X4 Technology New York team. Arthur is, I think, working out of our London office currently. Zach's here, works in our New York Brooklyn location. The two of them really run it globally. Some of the best recruiters are in our entire company, across any of our companies. So they're really fantastic. They've built out, a decent sized team there as well. But again, just about any position you could think of, I might not necessarily know every single recruiter, and just because we are such a large global company at this point. But there's someone that does just about everything, and it's something where we can definitely put you in contact with the right person to address your questions and get you someone super relevant for what you're looking for.
Right. All right, Joe, let me get you out of here. So,
Thank you so much for your time. We
Appreciate it.
appreciate you, Joe.
Yeah, no, this was great. Thank you both for having me on. Look forward to doing it again soon.
yeah, thank
Awesome.
you.
Awesome. You have a good one.
Thank you. All right, take care.
All right, bye. All right, there you all. You have it. Right here you go. Right. You got a chance to talk to a recruiter live. I don't know if you
Again.
all, I don't know where you or y'all scared to come up and ask questions or whatnot. Feel free to come up now. If you want to. Joe's gone. He's not backstage. he's out of here. But again, wanted you to have the ability to see, one, when you're talking to a recruiter, what else you can do with a recruiter, right? You heard, and I've done this myself. Hey, I see you have some other jobs here that are available in your company. I would love to talk to a recruiter, maybe possible interview or something like that, for these positions that you have. So, you know, once you have a way in, a recruiter is one way. Another way is a person that works there, or a hiring manager, excuse me, or just again, again, there's never when I look at a job, let me say it this way. When I look at a job, there's at least five doors to that job. And if I didn't knock on all five doors, or if I didn't go searching for those five doors in which to knock on, then I didn't do my due justice. That's LinkedIn, the company itself. Let me tell you this. This is old school. This is really old school. And this a teacher told me this when I was in college. He's like, if you ever want to get hired from a job, call a company after hours and then just go searching through their phone directory of the company to find the person's actual personal phone number. Now that was told to me in college, where you can just go through and start skipping through the phone directory. Again, social engineering is a mug.
Right. It's changed the game. It's changed the game. But you know what? And also, I think this whole process, having the recruiters come up, it builds confidence because the recruiters are saying, you know what? This is what we're here for. Ask us these questions. It's not about the job, but we are here to help you be your best selves. So if there's
Or
something that you're
present your best selves too.
present your best selves, and also, if there's something that you're interested in and you don't necessarily have the experience, you can ask them directly, how can I get there? And like the job that you guys went through, and it was no education requirement, and the skill set was pretty minimal, but it's just like, okay, how can I present my best self for this particular company because I have these skills, and where should I position myself within that? And if you can ask these recruiters the questions, it's building a relationship with them where you're in their face and they're like, okay, well, this person is a go-getter, this person is very interested, and I think this energy that you're exhibiting will be great for this particular company, because it's not just about the hard skills, it's about your soft skills as well. When Brent was on there, he was talking about, the cultural fit. They can teach you anything, but do you work well with others? So,
And do they work well with you,
and do
right?
they work
You
well with you?
Yeah,
It's a double edged sword.
you got to remember, it's a two-way street, right? It's not just my skills, but I just may not even like your delivery, so I don't even want to work with you. Like I don't even, the money sound good, but I don't want to work with you, right? So there's that thing too. You're shopping just like they're shopping, right? So it's best to get your best foot forward, on that, and ask questions like, okay, well, uh I've known some people. I know a guy that he asked this question. He's like, is the team all white? And he's like, if it's an all white male team, I don't want to work with you. And he's a white male. So, and he asked that question. And he's like, because there's no diversity in that, and I don't want to work with a team that's like that. That just lets me know the culture of the company and the culture of the management. And so he won't work for a team like that. That was his thing. and he ended up creating his own company. So just like honeycomb, right? So I mean, it can happen. So there's different. You have to think outside of the box when it comes to your job search and how you're looking at it. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
It won't
sky's the
work.
limit.
Yep. Another thing I wanted to also point out too, when and this has happened to me often, when you gel with a recruiter that is a person, because that's what they are, 9 times out of 10, they may not have a job for you right now. I have recruiters that are email me from 2 years ago, a year ago, 3 years ago, like, hey, would you be interested in this? I thought of you when this came up. What are you thinking? Hey, I have this job. Um, it's a contract position. The job is only going to run for 3 months. You can do 1099. We'll pay you 200 an hour for it. Are you interested? Right. And so it may not always be full time work. It may be just some part time work, that you do some work for. But again, you got to establish relationships, right? Um, I do like X4 because I like having a company that has multiple angles.
Yeah, those
Uh,
domains.
yeah, the different domains versus you may get a company or a recruiter that they only focus on big data. They only focus. So there may be a limit into how you can flex those things. And there's nothing wrong with being specialized. It's just there there are a multitude of companies out there that need different needs at a point in time. And if you have a company that has the ability to reach into those companies where you can pull out these things, I like that standpoint,
Yeah,
right?
and float your resume over to a totally different domain, and you're just like, wow, I hadn't thought of that, but for myself, but your skill set matches what they're looking for.
Right,
So that's
right.
super cool.
Yep. And are there any other questions? I mean, did y'all like
No,
the
everybody went out last night.
Everybody went out last night.
Yeah,
Come
everybody went
on,
out last
Bell.
night.
Happy birthday, Bell, for number two. Number two shout out. I'm keeping count.
Everybody went out last night. Everybody is dragging the day.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I
watching the
guess
meetup, we'll have 50,000 questions about it. And you're just like, we know we've discussed this on Saturday.
yep. And if somebody want to come up, feel free. Another thing I wanted to also highlight too is when you're recruiting and looking at companies, or when I say recruiting, because you recruit yourself, right? You go out and shop companies and look to see what's going on with them.
Yeah, definitely
Um,
prospecting.
is it great to know somebody at the company so they can float your resume through? Absolutely. Is it great to just apply? Absolutely. What I'm saying is take control of it. And here's the other thing: don't get your feelings up in a tizzy if somebody ghosts you. If they ghost you, you don't want to work with them anyway. It's okay, right? If a company don't call you back, you like, okay, well, this is my experience with that company. And here's the thing, here's the power of social media. The power of social media, you have the right to say, hey, I interviewed with this company. I went through 3 interviews. They never contacted me back. Is this and you can tag them, right? If you want to.
Hold
That
them
get that.
responsible. It's all about accountability because that's your time. That's your time, your energy,
Yeah.
and your effort. And to prepare for these interviews, you study. You study. You do your research. You do your groundwork. You miss some outings and do all that other stuff, and then you're like, okay, now what? And sometimes it's a job that you're really interested in, and it's your right to go in and see what's going on. And when they don't call you back, it's just like, okay, why have you wasted my time? And if you don't reach out to figure out, that recruiter may not no longer be there. It may
Yep.
be a host of reasons why that's not. And of course, nobody wants to be canceled on social media or called out on their
Oh, and that's another
shenanigans.
thing. Sometimes recruiters do end up getting another position, and you just get looped out of the chain. You're not. They don't even work there anymore, right? So you're doing the interview process, and you can ask this. It's not. You're not being harmful if you do. Bigger companies have a problem with it. I assume, but you can say, "Hey, do you have a point of contact?" For the, after this, I would like to stay in touch, or follow the person on LinkedIn or something like that. So that way you can, if a recruiter does get ghosted or something like that, you can at least contact one of the people that you interviewed with, at least get one point of contact so you can know what's going on in the process. If someone did ghost you, you can be like, hey, I think I might have gotten ghosted, or I hadn't heard anything. Has the position been filled? This, that, and other. And at least the person can reach out and say, hey, let me go check, or yeah, the position got filled, just that, nothing. At least then But that's
And
just
and Charles mentioned this when he was on a couple of weeks ago. It's also, the companies are trying to figure out, maybe trying to create a position and figuring out what kind of skill sets are applying for that position so that they can tweak it. So sometimes you're applying to a position that they're just doing research about, and they might be tweaking that position because if people may be coming in with some skill sets, or it might be leaning towards another type of skill sets. So that can happen as well when it's just, a research expedition with the data that they're getting on those positions. And so you can call about that as well. Like, okay,
Mhm.
so what happened? Is this position even still available? And, what kind of candidate did they pick for this? So that I know in the future, because this is something that I'm really interested in, and I want to make sure that I, you know, make my set my best foot forward and get the skills that I need to be able to I don't want to necessarily say compete, but in order to, get the position I want.
Yep. And then two, again, some states, the recruiter can't ask you what you previously made, or ask you what your salary range is. In some states, there's a website out there that talks about what recruiters can and cannot ask per state, on a per state basis. But again, for me, before you start the 3 to 5 to 7 long interview processes, what is your salary? What is the interview process, and what is the salary range? Simple, right? And when you find they can answer the interview process is 3, 4, or 5, and then they can't answer the salary range, and you have to go back and ask them again, it's probably going to be lower than what you're targeting. But you don't know until you ask. But then when you 9 times out of 10, it usually is. They usually know. Um, they usually and don't fall for. They say it's open, right?
That could mean a host of things.
Yeah. What does that mean? It's
What
open.
does that mean? What does that mean? Like, it's open to what? But you know what? I think also a great question or two to add to those two that you usually go into is so that you can have a timeline for yourself. So a lot of things about getting ghosted and all that other type of stuff. How quickly are they looking to fill the position? Is one of those questions you can ask, because again, they might be looking to fill a position, but the person currently in the position may be leaving next year. And so it's a holding pattern. And also, how long has the position been on been on the market? Like, how long have you been trying to fill this position? Because if the position has been on over a year and they've been looking for somebody, the number one red flag for me is the money is not there for
Well,
what you want to do.
yeah. Well, the thing about the position being open for a long time, I like those positions that are open for a very long time.
Why do
Um,
you like those positions? And you can tell us
well,
more.
because there's something that they're looking for, and then there's also something that they're also not just in need, but um are willing to negotiate the offer for
As
it.
far as
Right?
compensation or just the total
Just
package in
negotiating
general?
just the total package in general, where you could say, well, okay, um, I need to give a 2 months notice, or I may need to give a month's notice. They may be a little bit more flexible on giving that notice, right? Versus 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right?
So would you say the candidate has more bargaining power when a job has been on the market for longer or no?
In some
Okay.
cases, not in all. In some cases, they just can't find nobody. And then when they find you, they need to get it filled, and they want to get it filled ASAP because they're under a gun or something like that. It depends. But in some cases, you do have leverage. You do gain. When can you start? I always try to encourage people to, take 3 weeks versus 2 weeks. If you just really want to get out of there, you can do it in a day. But I encourage 3 weeks only because you probably would want to take that one of those weeks and just relax yourself and just mentally just power down, sleep, or work on a project or something like that before you start the next one. And I don't know if it's just a bad thing to say or whatnot. Let's call it old job residue.
Go decompress.
Yeah, just clear your mind, relax. Whatever paperwork you need to get filled out, take a little mini trip, 2 days, come back and whatever, do a staycation. Just relax and just get ready for the next job, because you don't know how hard you got to hit the ground running, especially if a job has been open for a very long time. That means there's paperwork backup. That means they need to get a problem solved. They're looking for answers, not what you're speculating. And you may need to do research, right? But you just came out another job. You're still mentally tied to it. You're not focused on the new situation, so it could be tricky. That's just my take. Another another thing too, um, as you get acclimated to the new job, I think D does this, is peruse the website. Some companies have internal websites.
They got a whole intranet of stuff that they have teams and teams of people um, working on. They got their whole communications, they marketing department. So, there's things that are geared towards employee engagement. So whether it's workout groups, volunteering, women's organizations, people of color, or LGBT organizations within that. For me, I always start with the business. I go and see what's down the pipeline. I want to see prospectus. I am looking at videos of the CEOs and CFOs and seeing what's going on. When's the last report came out? If they have there been any adjustments? Because then also you can position yourself if you want to, you know, move into another team, or if it's something that's interesting, because companies sell themselves like you sell yourself. And so they might say one thing when you're in there, but it's just like, is this company really facilitating and pushing education? What type of education portals do they have? How comprehensive is that? Are there any certifications that they offer? So to dig in that extra net to find out what they have. I happen to work for a global company, so a lot of things that they do as far as helping employees get cars or um, advancing them their paychecks or loans or things of that nature, because it's global, people move, and sometimes they want you to move like yesterday. And so it's just like, if you want me to move like yesterday, how do you help me facilitate that move as easy as possible? So I mean, when it comes to international, your passport, your HR, if you have any questions, your mental health, what does that benefit package look like? Are there seminars for that? What do they feel about your work life balance? Because that's important as well. Your time off. Do you have holidays? Do you have sick days? Do those days roll over? Do you have to use them? At the by the end of the year, what does that look like? So those questions are also very, very important for your work life balance, because some days you need a mental health day, and it may not have to do with the company itself, but some days you just don't present your best self, and it's okay. And to if does the company have enough sick time for you to do that? How does that accrue? So those are all good things to think about, when you are going to a company and when you get into a company. It does that, do they really walk the walk? Most likely.
Yeah. And I wanted to go back toward export technology.
Okay.
Mm, So here's the one. It was posted over a month ago. I'm just looking at the length of time they're actually posting uh, these jobs. Right, 3 days ago. See date posted.
Yeah, Kevin, I think that's important to know their revenue model as well. I know I worked for a startup, and before I got hired, they had like a massive layoff. And so I asked the recruiter, "What does that mean? What was the business thoughts on that? Or did they try to restructure? What was going on? Because I don't want to get hired onto a company that has tensions, number one,
Mhm.
and and I don't have any job security, and I'm going through all these hoops. So that's definitely
Right.
important."
And I'm looking at some of these that posted 11 days ago, 23 days ago, and they're not being filled. Right. Um, let me remove this. So now, yeah, title, location, requirements, type, and then they'll Florida state. They don't have one for compensation up here, but the compensation, like for here, comes up right here, right? Um, this is the one we were talking about here. 18 days ago, this got posted and it's still not filled. 15 days ago, 8 days ago.
And also, one of the things that I look at as well is, and it came to mind when I was working for one company, that they always had like a position for a project manager open. So it's one of two things, like, is the company growing in that area where they need new project managers, or can they not keep project managers, and why? Why can't you keep project managers? What's going on with this particular situation? And so it says a lot about the company. It could be structure, it could be training, it could be culture fit. And once I got hired and went through the process, I saw why. And it was a training component, it was a
Mhm.
culture fit component. And this particular company, they had a manufacturing arm, and they basically treated the corporate staff like the manufacturing arm, and it didn't really align with the business, because you're punching in and out like you're working the line. And it's just like, well, I'm in the middle of doing something. I need a little bit more grace to get these things done. So I saw exactly why they kept hiring and they were losing good people.
I'm posting, checking to see if anybody want to come up before we get out of here. D, nobody's backstage. Nobody's backstage, D.
Now, everybody's they went out last night. They went and shook a tail feather. So I know, people they're like, oh, we're not camera ready. We're still in the bed. They do on the live stream from the bed. I don't blame them. Um, and holidays are fast approaching.
Yeah,
Holidays are fast approaching, so people are chilling out. But thank
yeah.
you guys for the questions that did come. They were very insightful.
Mm-hmm.
No question. Oh, Belle said she's gonna come up. Do you have the link, or do I need to repost that? Let's see.
No, you don't have to come on camera.
You don't have to be camera ready. Here's the link. Yeah, all the questions were great, very insightful. No question is too small or too big. Sometimes you don't know, or you want a perspective on it.
Also, share my screen real quick.
Okay.
Look at this. Senior Information Security Engineer. And look at the experience. Experience with AWS, Azure, and or GCP. All three desirable but not required. Strong knowledge of application security, networking, and HTTP protocol. Experience using writing Python, Ruby, PowerShell scripts to automate cybersecurity functions. Okay, I just wanted to show you that, like in some jobs, they're gonna require some of the cybersecurity people to have tech experience, and some of them are not. But you need is again, no having too many skills is not a problem. I just wanted to point that out.
Hey, Belle, welcome to the stream.
Hello there.
How you doing?
Trying to recover from last night.
What?
See?
What you trying to recover from, girl? Tell us about it.
Oh my goodness. Yesterday was my birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So I went out with some friends, had a
What?
good time.
You had a good time.
I
Tell us more about these people that had you out, and it's 3 o'clock in the 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you just trying to still get it together.
I tried to get it together.
So the inside joke is we were all out last night.
We were celebrating Scorpio season
Scorpio
for our
season.
Scorpios.
My birthday
It's
was
Scorpio
Monday,
season. Yep.
and and if you not don't know who Bill is Linda Bill. She's in our
Mhm.
Slack group, and her birthday was on Friday, and so we all got together last night, and a couple of her friends, and then a couple of our friend, and we all hung out. We had champagne toast. We had gold
Gold
flower
leaves and
leaves
Oh yeah,
spilled
they set it
on
off for the birthday girls. They were definitely pampered pooches last night. They
oh my.
got this. Did you guys get the Stevie Wonder Happy Birthday song?
Yep, we got
We
this
did.
Stevie Wonder
Yeah,
Happy
Hmm.
Birthday song,
they got
Rose,
fancy special drinks, and then they had this particular bar. They were adorned with gold and rose
adorned.
petals.
I like that.
Hmm.
Adorned.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time.
Yeah, Rose. So I mean, we had fun, and that's the whole thing. That's the beauty of for me working in tech, right?
Hmm.
Make your money, then go party when you need to, go invest when you need to, but
Work
being
hard,
able
play
to,
hard.
yeah, and but being able to enjoy life, right? So
Yep.
there's work you got to put into it, but you know,
Yep.
I
Work hard,
appreciate the
play hard.
fellowship. I
Yep.
appreciate the fellowship, being able to, interact with everybody virtually, but when it's opportunities for us to meet in person and engage and, not take off our tech hat for a little while and just really enjoy each other's company, that's always super cool.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And the other piece too is you just get a chance to see the human side. Right? You know, just the human side of people. Like you want to be able to establish those um connections. And sometimes they don't, sometimes they end up being friendships, and sometimes they don't, and sometimes it just be the person that you know, but they never did anything back to you and nothing like that. You know who they are, so it's just what it is, right? And we appreciate
Yep.
you. I'm glad you had
Yep.
fun last night. I'm glad you got a chance to really celebrate outside of the accident.
Oh
Um,
yeah, that was crazy.
Oh my gosh, I don't know how I put that, I blocked that out. That was so scary. We saw a car accident last night, and it was a rollover in an intersection on the street. And thank
she
God
call it
everyone was
you
okay.
call it a rollover, like it was like the car just rolled over, but
No, that
It
hey,
flew,
counts.
it
That
went
car
up in
was
the air and flipped
that
three
car
times.
was airborne and flipped and bounced and the roof came off and I saw the people jiggle around and it was like a Hollywood special effects
It was
show right
surreal.
before my very eyes. It was crazy.
yeah,
It was
because
surreal.
we were
I
just
needed a
sitting there
moment.
and the car hit a Jeep, like a Jeep Wrangler, and the Jeep Wrangler boom, and then went up in the air, and then it rolled by what 3 or 4 times.
Hmm.
Surreal. Surreal. I needed a moment after that. Like it just so many emotions just hit me at one time, and I was like,
I was traumatized a good couple hours.
it
Mhm.
was I couldn't move. I couldn't move. And I mean, the restaurant we were in, everybody, including the people that were in the kitchen, everybody ran outside of the restaurant. One of the waitresses was in the cooler getting something, and she said I came out and the restaurant was empty. She said I thought I was something happened. She was like, "Where did everybody go?" She
They were
was
on the
like,
street.
"Wait a minute, dude, where am I at?" She was thought she was in a dream. She's
Yeah,
like,
she
"Where
told
did
me. She told
everybody
me she
go?"
thought she had passed out and didn't know it.
She was like, "How long I was how long I was knocked out?" It was a I think I don't. It might have been a Mazda. It was a
It was a
Mazda and a
Mazda.
Jeep Wrangler, and
Hmm.
it might have been an M6 from the size of it. But that
Hmm.
M6 third light was green, and maybe it was a dad and their 2 kids, and they went through the light. The top fell off. I mean, and the sound of the crash, they couldn't have all been going the speed limit. Somebody was going really, really fast because that
Hmm.
crash, it was just like crushing, and
Boom.
that car flipped, and you just couldn't believe it because you're just going about your business, having drinks, chilling out, and then
I was
everybody
I
ran
was
out. I
cussing
mean,
I
people
was
could have got
cussing
hit
people
because
out.
cars were going through the intersection. Just people were just running. It was crazy, and I'm glad everybody um, left the scene alive.
Mm,
Right. Right.
They were alive.
yeah, the guy, he was in the car by himself. I overheard some of the people saying that he was physically bleeding from his head and stuff like that. Um, and I hope he's okay. I have no idea
Hmm.
who's at fault because we just saw the incident happen. We didn't really see like the direction. It was just you heard,
Yeah.
Right.
and
At
you
that
I
look,
point,
and
we
you
didn't.
don't
like,
care
and you're
who's
like,
at
and you're
fault. We
like,
just want
oh
everybody to
shit.
be okay.
And
Yeah, I
it's,
didn't
and
see the setup, so I can't. I
yeah,
can't. I just saw it from bang. I didn't see it from left of
and the
bang.
and the other piece to that is luckily nobody was walking through the intersection at that
Oh
time
wow.
or
Hmm.
standing on the side where on the sidewalk, because there's a sidewalk where we were at. So it's
Hmm.
luckily nobody was standing on the
Because it
sidewalk
was an
or
intersection.
yeah, and nobody was walking across the street. But there's a lot of people that walking up and down
Hmm.
that street riding bikes, and it's a
Hmm.
it's a it's a
That's a
it's a
very
busy.
popular after hours area. Like it's part of the nightlife of the Tampa Bay area. And it's next to colleges. So everybody, it's a lot of walking traffic.
Now, right after that, there were some cars that went down the street the wrong way, um, and we thought that had occurred because it's typical for cars to go down the street the wrong way. There was a car that went down the street the wrong way last week. I was talking
Every
to
time
one
we're
of them,
there, it's a car that goes the wrong way.
and they
See,
had a head on
so
collision.
and I do some incident response work in cybersecurity, and so when I work on root cause analysis, I would look back at that and I would say, okay, procedurally, there's something that needs to be fixed here. So where are these cars turning in on that they don't know that they're going the wrong way? So I'm looking at the because I thought about this and I'm like, okay, these people, people will say, well, who was at fault? But I'm like, when this keeps happening like this, I really can't fault them because they didn't know they turned the wrong way.
Right,
Like this needs to be fixed.
and that's why I say they need wrong way signs on that street.
You need to
Posted
know
or
what direction you turn it into,
maybe arrows drawn on them.
arrows or something. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then it's a big club section, so a person has had a couple of drinks and not really paying attention. Maybe some signs that need to be lit. They might not need to be just painted regular signs. They might need to be some well lit LED signs with arrows in that particular area. Because
Hmm.
if you are lucid, I mean, you can see that there's like the don't turn left. So you're like, okay. But as far as like the one way signs, if it gets dark and you really can't see those, you
See,
need some.
my thoughts are someone these people are turning in off of a feeder street, and so there's nothing there to
right.
tell you anything. Yeah.
Well, not only that, what we often see right there at that intersection, somebody will come off the main intersection and they'll drive down. And by the time they get to the restaurant, the people at the restaurant are yelling at them
Wrong
like they're
way.
going the wrong way. But by that
Yeah.
time, they're in the middle of the street.
Right.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's a little business that has a parking lot with an entrance that they can kind of swerve into to get off of
Hmm.
the street. But it's one of those kind of towns where this area has a series of one ways if you're familiar with the area. But if you're not familiar and you're lost, you know you turn and you're just like, oh, I can go right here. It's like, no, you not paying attention. And sometimes the signs may be too high. When I first moved to Atlanta, and their signs were so high, like sometimes, and even in the rain, I found myself sitting underneath the traffic signal because the traffic signals were on cables, and it took me a while to get used to that. And a lot of these people are like I said, are coming, they're college students, and they're coming from other places, and those directives could be a little bit different. But it took me a
Hmm.
long time to kind of get used to that. Not having like lane lines, the double lines and all that other
Hmm.
type of stuff. And I'm just like, am I in the street? Like, and being like, no, I'm not in the street, but I'm underneath the sign. So it could be multiple reasons.
Well, that's a difference though. Like in downtown DC, there's no they're not all over, but they're the over. It's not an overhead. They're sitting on the side. So I used to run
Hmm.
red lights all the time.
And they get you. DC
Hmm.
is gonna charge you for those
Yeah.
tickets.
Yeah,
And it's just
DC
like,
it's
got
and
those
just
you
like
know, it
driving
cameras.
sounds
in
like
DC,
DC. Yeah, like
boy.
you're like, where is the sign? And you didn't pass it. And it's just like
Hmm.
there's nothing on the pole. Like guys don't want to put anything on the pole or invest in
But
some
but that was the
LED.
thing.
Or
It's on the
in
pole,
DC town, what about the how we are used to just turning right on red?
right?
And then there's a lot of no right turn on red. But
Hmm. But
can I
you,
tell you how many months it took me to realize that there is a sign somewhere that said no right turn on red?
yeah, and that's my favorite. No right turn on red. You don't know the other piece to that is, um, uh, because DC is good for this. Get off at was it 66 and a half
Mhm.
looking for the half street.
And you're looking for the half.
What the heck is that? But a lot of these old cities, DC is an old town, and it's just like
Mhm.
they have the narrowest streets ever. And I'm just like, this is dangerous. You need a horse and buggy to be riding down these streets. Like
But
You
this,
do.
it's an old city.
but it's a good thing you brought that up, Linda, from a cybersecurity standpoint.
Hmm.
Doing an incident response, and then again, like you say, a root analysis, still
Mhm.
related to tech, but and cyber. But what would you do to fix the problem? How long does it take to solve that problem? What things could be put in place? What can be put around the businesses? Because let's look at it this way: what if somebody, and I've always often thought about this, coming down that street, actually loses control and drives up on the sidewalk where that restaurant is at?
That's what we were talking about. My husband and I were talking about that. Like, what is going to happen when the day when somebody actually runs into that restaurant on that corner
Right. And
with
then the
so many
GPS, does your
incidents?
GPS warn you? Like one
Hmm.
way, don't move. Like all those sensors we were talking about last night with the car. Like, is the car gonna
Yeah.
start screaming at you like you going down the wrong way?
Well,
That's something
I
to think
think we've
about.
established that my car and Tam's car will, but not everybody else's car will start screaming at you.
Yeah, it will.
my, my car would start screaming long before you. I'm looking around going, what is the problem? The car done picked up the problem before I can pick up the problem.
The problem is a gnat or a cat. If
Right,
a cat sitting in a tree 5 feet away,
right.
you like,
No raindrop.
you mad at the cat 5 feet away? Yeah.
But yeah, I would hope that the city should have, s- I don't know if it would be the city or the police department, somebody that's looking at the root cause of these accidents. When you have so many in one intersection,
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the transportation department. They do
transportation or
that.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
So
gonna have to
you
put
need to
one way.
gather the facts
Yeah. And I
about
think it's
all
up
of
to those
these
businesses on the
accidents.
corner as well to get together and say, this is what's going on.
Right.
Yep.
Somebody needs to sit there, just like when they want to install a new traffic sign and they put that box up there, or they sit
Hmm.
somebody out and they count and they look. They need to start doing that. They do.
Now I have seen the police just sit there because a lot of time they're just people going down the wrong way or they're drunk going
Yeah,
down
it's
the
a,
wrong
it's a lot of drinking. It's a bar area. It's a heavily
It is a
populated
bar.
bar area, so it's definitely nightlife when you come to when you come to Tampa. So again, it's a lot of pedestrian traffic. It's a lot of car traffic, and because it's an older neighborhood, a lot of people are walking. I don't see a lot of those scooters in that area, but I do see
Oh, that would
a
be
lot of
good.
people
And
walking.
then, okay, from another comment from the risk professional corner. When you get in an Uber, when you get in the back seat, put your seatbelt on.
Yes.
Because what if you were in an Uber and your little Uber was just ambling through an intersection and somebody is coming up the wrong way and something like that happens? You might be thinking you're just jumping in, you're just going a couple of blocks and you don't put your seatbelt on, and something crazy like that can happen. So
hmm
Yeah.
your friendly neighborhood risk professional is please asking you, please put your seatbelt on in the back seat, because
Any vehicle you get in.
what I just saw, yeah, you needed to have your seatbelt on.
hmm And the other part of that too is, I was thinking, for the restaurant, maybe they put up and along the sidewalks, like how they have out of people from smashing into the front of buildings and stuff
Oh,
like that.
those
Barricade.
guards, those
Hmm
Ballots.
man guard, those
Ballards.
battles,
Yeah.
those big
hmm
round things. You
Mm-hmm.
could put those up to protect the, because you know department stores have them because people ram department
Mm-hmm.
stores to do smash and grabs.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you could put those up.
Yep. And so that's what one of the things I was thinking. Maybe it goes in the grass area,
Hmm.
right there. So that way, it's nothing to stop you from coming at the angle,
Hmm.
but because that's a crosswalk right there. But you
Hmm.
can stop if you're losing control as you come up the street. You don't fly into X, Y, and Z. So that's what I was just thinking on that piece. But it's just it's so many different things, that so many different scenarios that could be garnered from that, from the scooters to uh, being able to turn around quickly, turn around somewhere when you see the wrong way sign, turn here so you can
Hmm.
dip out of it so that people don't. I mean, I literally seen cars come down and the other cars coming and they're getting ready to have a head on collision and they just dip into a parking lot or
Hmm.
whatnot. Or the people, everybody will stop because they're trying to let the person know they're coming the
They're
wrong
beeping,
way.
before they get there, and if they're going, especially if they're going the speed limit. But all this to say is be careful and be aware. I'm a motorcycle rider, so it made me a better driver. Sometimes Tam gets on me and says I'm an old lady, and she's like, "What am I looking for?" But I grew up in a
No,
place.
this is in the new car.
No, it's more than one type of vehicle on the road. So, I come from a place where it could be somebody on a skateboard, some skates, a bicycle, a motorcycle,
No,
and
I was talking
everybody
about
has
you
to
driving.
share the road. Um, Tam is Wilhelmina with the wheel. She will run me
No, I was
over. So
talking
be
about you.
careful.
No, I was talking
Pedestrians
about.
beware.
No, dude was on the highway last night.
She be like, they see me coming.
No, I was talking about Dion on the highway last night.
I tell you, she's so full of it.
That's what she was doing. I was like, girl, this sensor's all around this car. You ain't gonna hit nobody. It ain't gonna let you hit nobody. In fact, in that particular car, it's gonna take over for you before you it'll jerk the wheel for me. I've been
Hmm.
driving it and it's like, oh, you drifting? Well, let me jerk you back.
I've been having a driver's license since I've been 17 years old. Just because the
Uh-huh.
car have all those sensors are not going to excuse
I'm
me
not
from
saying that.
using my senses
I
to
didn't
watch
say
the
that.
road.
I didn't say that.
I need
I,
to use my own senses as well because objects in the mirror see, are closer than they appear or further away in those different cars. So
yeah, Charleston is like that. I was in Charleston. Charleston is like that. You go down a wrong way real quick. You be like, man, how did you do that? And it's just not the signs. Like it's just not there.
that
So
might
I
be a
get it.
project for us. A little open source project for us. Like, how do
You
you
Hmm.
can't.
fix this?
Yeah, you can analyze. Use the open source project to do that.
What kind of open source project is it?
Maybe even getting like maybe getting an Adreno board that you can simulate to put in to a signal in a car where the car would signal to the person that they're going the wrong way. That is provided because this only happens in Dubai that you got a car within the last 5 years. So in Dubai, you can't have a car older than that's 5 years older,
They like
right?
no rating, nothing on this
Yeah,
road.
ain't no hoopty.
No, like ain't no emissions. Your car is brand spanking new. Traffic
Yeah,
signs at the service.
yeah, traffic signs in the area. Yeah, it's like so as you're driving down the wrong way, the car, signals to you that you're driving the wrong way. The cars are already reading how fast you're going anyway and
Hmm.
what the posted miles per
Speed
hour.
limit is, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
Hmm.
they already do that. That's what I was saying, Colton Evelyn. I don't know what we do with the old ones, but I know for the newer ones, that's something that could be implemented. But not only that, the other part is the Now I know they do this in Embrace, and what's the other one? It's OnStar. It'll prepare for impact. The cars prepare for impact, where the straps, because I know
Oh,
in
they
my
tighten.
they
Mm-hmm.
tighten down and prepare for impact. Go ahead and make the SOS calls 911 for you, and then stays on then and they stay on the phone with you until everyone arrives and so forth, to try to keep you conscious in a case of emergency like that. But what do we do with the old cars? I don't know what we do with the old cars. Maybe we put something in the phone. Everybody has a phone, right?
And most people don't, a lot of people don't even use their car GPS. A lot of people just go and use their phones for directions because they're always updated. Because a lot of cars, they don't, you might have to like buy a module or something to update your navigation. So it's just like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. And it might not have the features like, not map quest, but Google Maps will tell you like the traffic at the time of day, and so it's just more comprehensive to use that instead of
Mm-hmm.
your navigation in the car.
Yeah, and
Some people
maybe
use Waze,
yeah, maybe you put in the phones, in the Google Maps or in Ways. They say, "Hey, you're going the wrong way" or something like that.
right?
But
And it might
provided
be
that they
something
have
your
it on.
insurance provider might be like a good app for your insurance provider, like they do the what do you call that when you blow when you drunk,
Yeah, I know some. I forget the name of it though.
right? But
When you put it in the car.
yeah, and you get discounts for having this particular device, and it helps you out. So who
Yeah.
knows? There's so many ways this can go. Very interesting.
Yeah. And 605 said the Bugatti's in the junkyard over there. Probably, probably. It's probably a ton of different cars in the junkyard over here from various accidents. There have been a wrong way on the highway. Not as much as Atlanta has. Atlanta has had a lot of wrong way drivers on the highway.
And they
Um,
get on the freeway. Like, how are you getting on the
Mhm.
highway going
I
the
don't
wrong
even
way?
understand how you get past, like on the tollway here. One while they were getting around 4 or 5 arms that were down.
oh
Like, how do
yeah,
you get past all those arms and get up there doing 70 miles an hour, wreaking so much havoc? Like, how can you do that?
Well, you know
those
what? I
are
was
without
driving late one night and it was dark, and the way the navigation, it was a toll bridge, a new toll booth that was coming up, and my navigation was taking me to the toll booth, and the other way you could like bypass it. But if I wasn't looking, but there were those arms that were down and the toll booth
Hmm.
was closed, it wasn't even open. And I was like, if I was blindly following this navigation, I would have hit something just by following the navigation and not looking at the signs. Because I was like, this is not even open. I would have killed myself listening to that.
Oh my
Mm-mm.
goodness.
Well, we're glad you didn't veer off into the
I
arm.
know,
Need
right?
me.
I'm glad you were paying attention.
We're proud of you. That's cool. And let's see before we get out of here. If anybody didn't have any other questions, we appreciate y'all for hanging out.
Thank you, Linda, for coming up. We'll
Yep,
talk to you soon.
I'll talk to
yep.
you
And
soon.
also,
Yeah.
make sure you all apply for some of these jobs, because there's no reason why we shouldn't at least be trying, right? Especially when some of them are not even requiring um, degrees, because I know some people are coming out of boot camps and trying to figure things out. I would say use as many free resources for programming as you can. GPS will set you up for failure if you trust it too much. Yep, all the time.
You be like, I know this way. This what and you like, where are you pulling from? Like, what map are you pulling from? This is
Yep,
interesting. Yes.
yeah,
GPS will have you set up, especially with them left turns. They be like, turn here. Like, I can't turn here.
right. And then two, is the other part is I don't know how accurate, how often they're getting this information. Like how a street change from a one way to 2 lanes 2 weeks ago is updated on the GPS. I don't know how quickly that information
Right.
gets sourced. I mean, I guess Google Earth gets used, but I'm not sure.
Yes, make the next legal U-turn. Yeah, they put that in because it didn't say that for a while.
Yeah,
Um, but
as
yeah,
as as,
GPS. I was like GPS,
as
and some people take things literally.
yeah, or as one of my people that I used to hang out with back in the day, a U-turn was called bust a bitch, and I was like, why are we busting bitches? I don't know why we're doing
No.
it.
And then I was on a support call with a client and a vendor, and the client kept saying, the user kept saying, I don't do computers. The computer is broke. And me and the guy, we're cracking up. It's like, is it the computer or is it the application? Like, let's go back. And some people in their mind, they are so dead set on their mind frame, like it's just the computer. And it's just like, okay, we need you to talk you off this ledge real quick because this is gonna be a long call.
Yep, and that's the other thing too. When you all are out here taking driving lessons with these jobs, uh, make sure you all vet them out and ask your questions. Just and if you gotta, what I would tell you to do is take as D said, notepad moment. Take some time and write up 10 questions that you would have about any company. Right, just write them down, and then when the contact or a recruiter contacts you or whatnot, shoot up the questions that you already had written down. You may tweak it here and there, but 10 common questions that you would have. How big is the team? How many women on the team? Is security important to you? Is it not? How many people do you plan on hiring in the next few years? Is this a position, a backfill position? Is this a position newly created? What's the trajectory, career path for this position? Um, who could be a mentor or a guide, someone that can guide in this particular position? How open is the manager to promoting within the company? Like, what does that look like? Um, what kind of education benefits do you offer? Just all these things. These are little. They sound small, but they make up the position that you're applying for, or trying the job you're trying to get. Right. So just
You
take
know what
those
I just
things
thought
with you.
about?
What's that?
I, I just thought about like testing your like mental readiness, like if you're ready for like the job search or just to get in it, your grit in it. Like try to, and everybody's a different age, and so my parents, I guess they would be considered boomers, but like walk your parents and like doing something on their phone or their tablet and see how patient you are with them and with yourself and see and test yourself because I think that will bring anybody to the brink of wanting to strangle somebody through the phone. Like walk them through.
My mama still don't text. Now when she do text, it'll be some random garbled message, and I'll text back, "Hey," and she won't ever text back. And then I'll call her and I'm like, "Did you text me? I text you something. I don't know what it was." I'm like, "Well, can you get?"
Walking my dad through checking his email and what email it was. I just heard him clicking buttons. I was like, Dad, stop clicking the buttons and listen to the sound of my voice. And my mother, she's a good speech to text person. So she'll forget to turn it off and she talks to herself a lot. And so you get like of these huge texts and she didn't have the whole conversation. And this is just like, what are you talking about? Just call me. Just call me. So test your readiness because
Robert
it's
Anderson, I feel you. I ended up in The hills have eyes too. So I was leaving my mom's house from Conyers going to uh, Warner Robins, but I had went somewhere to get some gas. Now I thought it was just gonna put me back on the highway, and it didn't. And it started raining and got dark. I started seeing nothing but trees. I mean, like I'm talking trees for miles and miles and miles on this back road. And I saw like this big Confederate flag standing in a like this big patch of grass, and it was a cop. Like it went down the hill and did it like a little deep turn, and it was a cop sitting there, and the lane it went from the big wide two lane to a little narrow, and I was like, man, I was in a Mercedes. I called Embrace, and I said, no offense, but where the hell am I at? And I was like, and he was like, well, you're almost there. You're about 30 minutes away from where you need to be. I was like, look, you got to stay on the phone with me because I don't trust this. I don't know where I'm at. I feel like I got it. I got it. I got anxiety. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I was like, the trees are swirling. They talking about tornado watch. I was like, man, just stay on the phone with me till I got there. And he was like, well, you're only 30 minutes out. You know, you just keep going straight. I was like, okay, so what they got to do with me and you staying on the phone? That's why I called you. And I
You are
had
the concierge, and this is what I need.
yeah, you the concierge, and this what I need. So tell me about your day. What
Because
you do
don't let
today?
it be a what you call a pile up on the main road. They will take you through the forest, the river, and the streams to try to get out of that. Some of those small towns, you like, oh my God, people really live here.
I ain't
People still
stopping for
live like
gas.
this.
I
And there's
remember
nothing wrong with having a small town, but I'm just like,
I remember this was in Carter's. This was it. Yeah, this was in Cartersville, Georgia, and this was about 2000. No, this is in the 90s. This is in the 90s, and one of my friends, his car had got repossessed. Not repossessed. It got towed, and so he had to go get it from the tow spot. So we went and drove up to the tow spot to get the car, right? And then we were driving back in, we was like, oh, we need to stop and get some gas. So we stopped to get some gas and we went into the gas station, and it was a big Confederate flag that covered the whole entire wall in the back of the gas station. And we went in, and the guy and the lady was standing there, and they looked at us. We was like, we just want gas. We just want gas. We don't want no problems. We just want gas. And he was like, y'all hurry up and get it and get on. And we was like, no problem. We
it's
just
like some of
want
those. This
gas.
is part of a scary movie, like Jeepers Creepers or something. Like,
We just want
I have no
gas.
problem with you.
We just want some gas. That's all we want to do. And we got that gas. We was like, let's just get enough to get us to the next gas station. Just get it up. Like, get a half a tank and let's go. Right? We was like,
Mm-mm.
we don't want
No
no
children of the
problems.
corn for me.
Yeah, man. You know, some of these little backwoods small towns, even Virginia got it. And do you remember when we went to West Virginia? When we went
Do
to
you remember when you was gonna move to West Virginia? And I was
what
like,
was that? What was the name of that city? Clarksville. Wasn't it Clarksville? So we went to Clarksville, West Virginia. I ain't never went
down the tech corridor. Beautiful
75 miles
ride, gorgeous, green, lush.
over the big going over the bridge, and then the bridge that high up, going over this river, and you're going up, so you're going in the mountains, so you can hear the clicking in your
Three
ears.
hour ride,
It
gorgeous,
was,
gorgeous ride.
yeah, 3 or 4 hour ride up into the mountains, right? Just going. Finally, we get to Clarksville. And I'm like, people always talking about a town with one red light in and one red light out. That's that place. the
Where
biggest
everybody
one.
at the Dairy Queen.
Everybody was at the Dairy Queen. It was the pull up spot. The
It
cops
was
was there.
literally one lane in and one lane out, and the houses were expensive, and it
Yep.
looked like a blast from the past. And I was like, okay, we have seen what we need to see. You are not living over here. Let's go. And she was like, well, what do you mean? Let's explore. And I called her a bag of bees. I was like, if you don't get us up out of here and back on this road, I was like, I would not be a statistic out
Yep.
here. Like, we are on Main Street. It's time to go.
She didn't want to
It
explore.
could have been a town full of contractors, but I'm like, where is the nearest airport? Like, no, no, we're not doing West Virginia. History told us we are not staying in West Virginia.
Why you don't
I'm
want to stay
not
with
coming
your
to
cousins?
visit you over here, and
You
I'm
don't want
not
to stay with
letting
your
you.
cousins. You don't want to stay with your cousins. Any town in the South that has a ville in the name should be avoided. Nah, it don't have to have a ville in the name. You know, they
I used to tell people all the time in Atlanta. I was like, Atlanta is the only city. I said, you travel too far out of Atlanta, you'll be surprised. And it because it's grown over the years. A lot of people are in some of those suburbs, but even Kennesaw, I was like,
yeah.
mm, mm,
Cartersville is outside of Kennesaw.
like, no. When especially when Tamika told me the story of Stone Mountain, and they just be over there just hiking and exercising and taking
Oh
pictures. I
yeah,
was like,
yeah. My grandmama used to tell us don't go to Stone Mountain because that's where they used to hang. They used to hang us off the mountain. They used to hang us off the mountain. You can go look that up. You can even see pictures of that. What the Ku Klux Klan used to gather at Stone Mountain every year. Um, and every year, um, they would gather and they would you would see people hanging off the mountain and stuff like that. So that's known. Yeah,
the
that's
story of
known.
Lake Lanier, like,
Yeah, yeah. The
like,
Lake Lanier used to be a black owned city, and then it got flooded, and they flooded the town. So the story behind Lake Lanier is that Lake Lanier is haunted. With if you dig, if you dive deep enough, you'll see the actual town underneath Lake Lanier.
yeah, some
So,
places I don't go.
yeah. And then there are other cities that are black owned that have been flooded or
Hmm.
burned.
A
Primary,
quick YouTube
a
search.
lot of them have been flooded. Um, Not necessarily, but a lot have been flooded. When it comes to some of these towns, and some of these towns are black owned towns, actually, right? Some of these towns have been things that have over time, generations over time, that people a parent has passed down from generations, and they start creating a town create cities. Cities create metros. Then you got destinations. I mean, it's the same way in New York, right?
Hmm.
um,
All the
Central
major
Park.
cities.
Yeah, Central Park, is another one.
That was a black
Everybody's
area that they moved to create the park.
right.
So,
Same way with Florida, in St. Pete, where the dome was at. It was all black owned. That land over there now, you can't get nothing for less than a million over there. So, yep. Would you say some parts of Maryland, like, oh yeah, Maryland is like that? Yep, Maryland like that. You like, man, people like, oh yeah, I stay in Maryland. I'm like, Maryland is like Conyers to me. It's all spread out. There ain't nothing but trees everywhere. Ain't no sidewalk. His only sidewalk is where the subdivision starts. That's the sidewalk. There's no sidewalk on that main strip. Like I was like, man, like if you get stranded over here, you stranded. Like like it's like you just walking down the street to go to, your what's it? What do y'all have in the DMV? It ain't Publix or Wegmans. Uh,
hmm.
uh, I forget all the other stores. Harry Teeter's, all the other stores that y'all have up there. Yep. So it's crazy. But again, when you're looking at this, you can always apply tech to every last situation that we just talked about. Every last situation we just talked about, you
Hey,
can
that's
apply
what
tech.
it is. Finding a problem and creating a solution. So
Critical
simple
thinking.
as that.
Yep. Well, we appreciate y'all. We're out of here officially. We'll catch y'all next week. I'm not sure if we got a meeting this week. I gotta double check that.
I
Giant,
have to
yeah.
double check. I think we have a meeting. We don't have a study group this week. The holiday Thanksgiving is Thursday,
Okay.
and so
I figure probably people probably be traveling on Wednesday, or they may already be at their destination.
are cooking.
We'll find out.
So
We'll spin
we
up
want to know
something and
what
see
people
what
cooking.
happens. Yeah. All right, y'all. Y'all be safe.
All right, have a good one, everybody.